The tennis sensation Emma Raducanu could earn more than $100 million in sponsorship money, according to brand experts.
The teenager became the first British woman to win a tennis Grand Slam in more than 4 decades at the US Open. Professor of Sports and Business Simon Chadwick told me why Raducanu is the dream client for the world's biggest brands.
She's quintessentially Generation Z, mixed heritage, social media savvy, somebody who has got personality. And I think it's the personality that in particular is interesting, because all successful brands are distinctive and are differentiated from other brands. And by virtue of the fact that she speaks more than one language, she belongs in lots of different places, she speaks very well, she looks good, and clearly she has a lot to say. And the way she says this in a very accomplished fashion really marks her out as being different to many of her peers.
In terms of corporate sponsorship, etc., how lucrative can tennis be for those at the top?
In tennis, we're typically talking about tens of millions rather than hundreds of millions. And what we know is Naomi Osaka, for example, people are suggesting that she's already earned between $30 and $50 million from her tennis career. One would imagine that given that Osaka's age, if she continues to win, then clearly she's in the territory of going beyond 100 million or more. And for somebody like Raducanu, if they can sustain longevity over a decade and win consistently and continue to embody the kinds of values that sponsors want to align with, then you can conceivably see 100 million or more. But it is really, really difficult, I think, for tennis players to break through that barrier. And I think it's especially difficult for female tennis players to break through that $100 million barrier.
Which sectors will sponsors come knocking from and earn her the most?
I think what's particularly interesting about Raducanu is her age. Because what that suggests is some interesting opportunities to engage younger target audiences. So perhaps for some non-conventional sponsors, in other words, sponsors that aren't typically involved either in sport or in tennis. We also know, too, that Raducanu has an interesting heritage. She spoke in Chinese. Given that she seems very at home and at ease with social media, you then begin to think about the likes of Tencent or Weibo or Alibaba in China that conceivably might want to associate with her too. So I think we'll see some of the old standards, some of the old staples. We've not mentioned financial services brands either, but I think we might also see some new sponsors, some new brands entering, possibly in conjunction with Raducanu.
How significant is her support in China and that Chinese heritage to her brand worth?
That's a really interesting question, because China's tennis history is a strange one in many respects. China obviously had its own hero, its own star, Li Na, several years ago, but since then hasn't necessarily had the breakthrough moments that Chinese tennis has needed. Li Na was something of an outsider in the sense that she didn't come through a traditional system, and for that matter, nor did Raducanu. But I think at a time when Chinese tennis is really searching for a hero or a heroine, Raducanu might potentially fill that void. Tennis in China is perhaps not the biggest sport in China, but certainly lots of people are interested in it. Lots of people are learning to play it. But at the same time, I think it really needs a star that will help fans and consumers to engage. And given the ease with which Raducanu can slip from English into Mandarin, given that her mother's from Shenyang, I think it's entirely conceivable that the Chinese may fall in love with her just as much as the English have done.